Security. Vigilance. Self-sufficiency. Faith. Peace. With faith in God, vigilance and self-sufficiency, we strive for peace and security.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله الذي سخر لكم البحر لتجري الفلك فيه بأمره ولتبتغوا من فضله ولعلكم تشكرون.
In the Holy Quran, we find that the words bar, meaning land, and bahr, meaning sea, have been mentioned 13 and 32 times, respectively. In other words, land has been quoted 29% of the times, and the word sea 71%. On the other hand, precise measurements show that the total surface area of the Earth is 510 million square kilometers. 148 million square kilometers of it is land, and the remaining 362 million square kilometers is covered with water. In sum, land covers 29% of the Earth's surface, and seas and oceans the remaining 71% of it, a proportion that amazingly corresponds to the number of times the terms land and sea have been mentioned in the Holy Quran. Throughout recorded history, the sea has impacted man's life in more than one way. 2/3 of the Earth's surface is covered by water, giving people an alternative traveling route to the four corners of the world. The sea and the seabed are rich resources of food and energy, among them vast resources of oil and gas. And then there are the tides, harnessed by man to produce electrical power. More than 90% of cargo transits are done through seaways. The costs are much lower compared to other means of transportation, and the size of cargo and energy transported huge.
وهو الذي سخر البحر لتأكلوا منه لحما طريا وتستخرجوا منه حلية تلبسونها وترى الفلك مواخر فيه ولتبتغوا من فضله ولعلكم تشكرون.
The sea influences a literal country's economy and its policy implementation. In this regard, Iran's leader and the commander-in-chief of the armed forces has said,
منافع دریا مال همه است. امکانات این دریای پربرکت متعلق به این ملت هاست. چگونه می شود از این برکات به نفع منافع ملی استفاده کرد و کشور را از اون بهره مند کرد با داشتن اقتدار. این اقتدار را شما نیروهای مسلحی که با معنای جهاد و مفهوم از خودگذشتگی خو گرفته اید می توانید تأمین کنید.
The leader's remarks highlight the significance of seamanship and its impact on a nation's sovereignty. The sea is of critical importance to a nation's economy and its development. The interests of countries with maritime borders are directly related to their needs, abilities, and culture. and it actually reflects their nautical policies. It can easily be noticed that many of the powerful and prominent countries in today's world owe their advancements to the seas and their navies. Seaways are considered to be the most economically viable means for cargo transit. Sea transport plays a key role in foreign and transcontinental trade. Sea transport is much cheaper than air or land transport and has more capacity and facilities in comparison. Under the same conditions, 1 horsepower can carry a cargo of 8 kilograms by air, 100 kilograms by land via highways, 800 kilograms by rail, and 4,000 kilograms by sea. The authority of governments over seaways is not only the most economical method for cargo transit, it is also influential in consolidating the principles of economic independence, leadership, in securing the rights of a country in the sea. This is why most countries around the world that can naturally access international waters have established a navy and are controlling at least part of the worldwide sea trade. The Indian Ocean, the 3rd largest in the world, is turning into a center of challenges in the 21st century. Examining the map of the Indian Ocean shows that in the 21st century, global policy makings will be taking place in this area for the following reasons. Half of the transportation in the world is happening in the Indian Ocean. Also, 70% of the petroleum products which are going from the Middle East to the Pacific Ocean have to pass through the Indian Ocean. 40% of world trade happens through the Strait of Malacca, and 40% of the world's petroleum crosses the Strait of Hormuz. It was predicted in 2006 that the need for oil around the world will increase by 45% by 2030. Located in the southwest of Asia, in the northern hemisphere, and at 46 to 63 degrees east longitude and 25-39 degrees north latitude, the Islamic Republic of Iran has special privileges. It is located in the heartland and rimland regions and next to the Shattered Belt. It has extended shores along the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Oman. It is next to the strategic Strait of Hormuz and the most critical and strategic islands. Compared to the rest of the countries sharing this seaway, Iran controls a larger area and has military and population superiority. These strategic geographical characteristics allow Iran to establish the north-south corridors independently and the east and west shipping routes with the cooperation of the Commonwealth of Nations and Europe. No country in this region enjoys the same strategic location as Iran. The fact that Iran's maritime routes pass through the Indian Ocean, the strategic straits of Hormuz, Malacca, Bab el-Mandeb, and the Suez Canal confirms the necessity of a powerful navy for Iran to provide national security in the waters of the Indian Ocean and achieve its national goals. Having a navy along with efficient merchant vessels and up-to-date marine science and technology all complement the country's maritime might and result in increased national security, which in turn facilitates the achievement of national goals. In other words, the Navy will bring about safety and freedom for the merchant vessels of the Islamic Republic of Iran to sail in the northern parts of the Indian Ocean, and it will at the same time preserve the country's resources and protect its strategic interests in this area. The crisis that major powers have recently caused in the northern parts of the Indian Ocean to get their hands on its oil and dominate the Middle East region demands the powerful presence of the Islamic Republic of Iran. So in this regard, the main activities of the Islamic Republic of Iran Navy in the Indian Ocean and the Sea of Oman include developing the naval forces from the Green Water Navy to Blue Water Navy, ongoing and serious battle with maritime terrorism in the Indian Ocean, the Gulf of Aden, and Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the raising of the Islamic Republic of Iran's flag in distant seas by the powerful presence of the Islamic Republic of Iran Navy in these areas, and securing distant and near maritime routes by escorting the Islamic Republic of Iran's merchant vessels and oil tankers. Maritime power means the capabilities a nation has for obtaining its interests in seas and oceans, so that it can preserve its political, economic, and military activities at the time of peace or war for the purpose of moving towards its national goals and desires. Maritime power and sovereignty can help countries protect and secure their borders and improve their political and economic prowess. Maritime power can never be separated from the concept of geoeconomics, and the Navy is obviously a part of the maritime power, acting as its military branch. Today, the Iranian Navy has managed to safeguard the country's borders and its natural resources powerfully and effectively, and has not allowed anyone trespass those borders. Today, with support from the leadership and with committed, devoted, creative, and inspired young forces all on deck, Iran has been able to maintain its leadership role in the waters of the Persian Gulf, the strategic Strait of Hormuz, the Sea of Oman, the northern part of the Indian Ocean, the Gulf of Aden in the south, and the Caspian Sea in the north. During the Iraq-Iran War, the Iranian Navy carried out numerous escort operations, one of the most complex joint operations of the naval and air forces. Through these operations, more than 10,000 merchant vessels were escorted and more than 300 million tons of cargo imported to the country. At the present time, the Navy is still responsible for securing slugs. In the 2,900 days of the war, the red alert for airstrike was issued 2,800 times in Khark Island, but the country's oil exports never stopped, thanks to the daring acts of the naval forces and the brave staff of the National Iranian Oil Company. And this is one of the greatest honors of the Islamic Republic of Iran Navy during the war that lasted 8 years.
ما هرگز از آغاز تشکیل نظام جمهوری اسلامی هیچ کشوری را، هیچ قدرتی را به رویارویی و جنگ تشویق نکردیم و نخواهیم کرد و تا اونجایی که بتوانیم از هر گونه رویارویی حساب شده یا تصادفی جلوگیری میکنیم. این به جای خود محفوظ ما یک ملت صلح طلبیم. اون کسانی که پیشرفت کار خودشون را با حضور نظامی، با تحکم نظامی، با زورگویی‌های معمول میخواهند تأمین کنند، باید در مقابل خودشون یک ملت مقتدر را حس کنند و مظهر اقتدار ملت در دریا شما نیروهای دریایی هستید.
The confrontation of the Navy with the enemy and all the honors it has achieved in battles, all the gallantry, courage, martyrdom, show the power and reliability of this great and honorable force. Imam Khomeini. From the very first days of the war, with unrest breaking out in border areas, the Iranian Navy prepared itself to fight the enemy head-on. As a first step, it established a base in Bushehr named Task Force 421, and on September 22, 1980, exactly 1 day before a full-scale invasion by the enemy, all naval units went under the operating control of this base. Immediately, they carried out various patrols and reconnaissance missions using helicopters and faced the possible moves of the enemy by ongoing patrol and warfare operations conducted to protect Iran's control over the waters of the Persian Gulf and its resources. In the initial months of the war, Iranian Marines downed a number of the enemy's fighter jets and hit a number of enemy combat ships. In November 1980, the Iranian Navy carried out 2 operations named Ashkan and Shahid Safari against Mina al-Bakr and Khor al-Amaya, the Iraqi Ba'ath regime's largest oil terminals. The attacks crippled the platforms, stripping Iraq of its sole maritime route for oil exports and throwing its economy into a tailspin. After Ashkan and Shahid Safari operations, the enemy did not dare enter Persian Gulf waters anymore. Iraq's ruling Ba'ath regime was furious at the time and left scratching its head. And that paved the ground for Operation Marvarid, or Pearl. Marvarid was a joint operation of the naval and air forces. Based on their previous joint maneuvers, Iran's Navy units would face the enemy directly, and while doing so, would send out the exact coordinates of the enemy's surface units to Iran's fighter aircraft and lead them towards their target. That operation took place in an area of approximately 400 kilometers in length and 50 kilometers in width, from the utmost northern parts of the Persian Gulf to the operation territory of Task Force 421 in the 2nd Maritime Zone of Bushehr. Iraq's surface units, due to their previous defeats, were avoiding their Iranian counterparts. The main purpose of Operation Marvarid was to force these units into action and then destroy them, the outcome of which would be preventing the Iraqi Ba'ath regime from exporting its oil through the Mina al-Bakr and Khor al-Amaya oil terminals, which would cause problems for its economic system, break its maritime connections, block its international maritime routes, and establish a watch post on al-Bakr platform for the Iranian forces. After the launch of Operation Marvarid and with a second attack on Mina al-Bakr oil platform, enemy troops were forced to act, a move already foreseen by the minds behind the operation. Naval helicopters, fast missile patrol boats Peykan and Joshan, a special operations team, Delir tugboats, and jet fighters from the Air Force participated in the operation. Missile boats Peykan and Joshan were responsible for controlling the surface warfare and supporting the Special Operations Team. One of the significant and noteworthy points of the operation was the great cooperation between the naval and air forces and the harmony between them, which resulted in the success of the operation. The other significance of the victory was the domination of only 4 Iranian commanders over the 20 military personnel of the enemy who were already on the platform. The 4 Iranian commanders fought with such courage that the enemy thought a large number of Iranian forces has entered the platform. After a fierce combat from the enemy's forces on the platform, 10 were taken captive and the rest escaped to the northern part of the platform and from there to Al-Amaya platform by a vessel. After the domination of Al-Bakr platform by the Special Operations Team, the flag of the Islamic Republic of Iran was hoisted there. After this operation, the enemy sent out its forces from Khara Abdullah one by one, trying its best to support them with its aircraft. The Pekan FMBP, besides confronting the enemy and guiding Iran's air forces towards the enemy units, destroyed some of them too. The air patrol over the combat zone reported that the enemy had left the area, so at noon that day, the operation ended, and the Pekan missile boat returned to the base. But after a few miles, one of the enemy's missile boats, which was hiding under the Al Amaya platform, fired 3 successive missiles at Pekan FMBP and sank the boat, and many of its gallant staff were martyred. After a while, the offensive enemy boat was targeted and gunned down by Iran's aircrafts. In that operation, martyr Mohammad Ibrahim Hemmati was the commander of Pekan FMBP. After this heroic act of the faithful, gallant, and devoted forces of Iran's Navy, Imam Khomeini ordered the 7th of Azar to be named as the Iran Navy Day. Some of the achievements of Morvarid operation were destroying over 2/3 of the enemy's navy in the first 67 days of the war, the destruction of Al-Bakr and Al-Amaya oil platforms, which were the enemy's greatest source of income. After these operations until the end of the war, the platforms were completely non-operative, so without the financial support of the major powers and supporters of Saddam, continuing the war would have been impossible for him. Blocking the enemy's locks and preventing all import and export to and from Iraq. Keeping the Iranian maritime locks open despite the enemy's efforts to use highly advanced missiles provided by its supporters during the 8 years of war. Securing the leadership of the Islamic Republic of Iran over the Persian Gulf, the strategic Strait of Hormuz, and the Sea of Oman until today, and God willing, forever. In Morvarid operation, 12 Ba'ath regime warships were destroyed, 3 were badly damaged, and the rest never dared to show up and come further than Khara Abdullah and Bobian Island. In addition to that, 11 jet fighters of the enemy were shot down, and dozens of enemy forces were also killed, injured, or captured. The Navy's mission, which was to block enemy maritime routes and to keep the Iranian routes open, was completely accomplished on the 68th day of the war. After this operation, the leadership of Iran in the Persian Gulf region was totally established. Until the end of the war, no surface units of the enemy ever targeted or threatened any Iranian ports, islands, or facilities again, while at the same time the Iraqi maritime locks were kept blocked and no merchant vessels and oil tankers could access its shores and ports. As a result, the Ba'ath regime of Iraq had to cooperate with the countries located in the southern banks of the Persian Gulf. With the help and support from these countries, Iraq carried its military and non-military requirements to their ports, and after unloading, the cargoes were taken to Iraq, by land, for which it underwent great expenses. And this put pressure on Iraq's economy. The enemy's naval force, which had lost not only cruisers and frigates but also many of its crew members, could not replace its units, especially its trained staff, within a short period of time. Furthermore, considering what they had gone through, the enemy Navy commanders understood that even if they could replace their staff and facilities, they would still be unable to face the Iranian Navy. So for a long time, the maritime slocks of Iran were relatively safe and faced no considerable problems, except for some special air threats, counteracted by different units of the anti-aircraft warfare forces. The enemy's army, by accepting its weaknesses, tried to resolve the deadlock they were in, using the help of major powers to change their tactics, and got access to modern military equipment to threaten Iran's sea lines. In order to counteract this move, Iran drew on the tactics and creativity of its brave men and nullified the attacks of the enemy. The bold operations of the courageous Iranian naval forces in the 8 years of the Holy War include the heroic 34-day operation to defend Khorramshahr at the beginning of the war, providing anti-aircraft and anti-surface warfare for Iran's islands and oil platforms from the beginning of enemy military threats up to the end of the war, defending the Abadan island and preventing the fulfillment of Abadan and Khorramshahr siege in Kuya-Zolfaghari operation, performing general support operations of Abadan island and Khorramshahr with air-sea units and small vessels of the Islamic Republic of Iran Navy during the land siege of this island, performing a series of operations for escorting merchant vessels, oil tankers, and ships with special cargoes, conducting destructive attacks against Al-Bakr and Alamaya oil terminals in Ashkan and Shahid Safavi operations, conducting the Morvarid operation with success in the Al-Bakr platform region, which resulted in the destruction of a large portion of the enemy's naval power and gained maritime leadership for the Islamic Republic of Iran, conducting continuous patrol and safety operations and controlling sea lines and maritime slocks to keep Iran's maritime slocks open, conducting tracking and inspection operations of suspicious ships to keep the enemy's maritime slocks blocked and to ensure the total water siege of the enemy was in place, defending Greater and Lesser Tunis and Abu Musa islands in the central part of the Persian Gulf, the penetration operation of Naval Special Operations Team to the depth of the enemy's territories, and the destruction of missile launch platforms and radar masts of the Silkworm missile system in the Ras al-Besha region, identification operations in the western banks of Arvan Rud River by Naval Commandos Special Operations Teams, search and rescue operations on the sea, the offensive mine-laying operation in Khar Abdullah waterway, conducting destructive raids against Khar Abdullah estuary by Naval Special Operations Teams, facing the trespassing U.S. forces in order to protect Nasr and Soleiman oil platforms and to defend the sovereignty of the Islamic Republic of Iran at sea on April 17, 1988. The formation of the Naval Commando Fighters Team and the creation of defensive spots in Abadan-Mahshar axis to prevent the enemy from moving forward. Conducting destructive raids against enemy artillery by Naval Commandos Company Team in the initial days of the Holy War in the Shush-Karkhe axis in order to get the Desful Air Force Base out of their artillery range. Conducting defensive operations from Abadan Island and supporting the left wing of the operating forces in the successful operation of Salman al-Aim, breaking the siege of Abadan. Effective cooperation in supporting the front line at Sarpol Zahab in the west of Karun and Karkhe Kur rivers in Operation Beit al-Muqaddas, and carrying out an offensive operation in Abadan Khorramshahr axis and releasing and clearing the eastern parts of the occupied Khorramshahr. Effective cooperation in Operation Khaybar, using helicopters and hovercraft squadrons and offensive vessels in Hur al-Hubayza, Hur al-Azim regions, and Majnoon Island. Effective cooperation in the First Battle of Al-Fa and occupation of Al-Fa port. The Maritime University of Imam Khomeini was established after the victory of the Islamic Revolution to gain educational independence for Iran and counteract the sanctions imposed against the country by the global powers. During the 8-year war and after that, in reaction to the sanctions, the engineers, designers, and technicians of the Iranian Navy succeeded in doing major and minor repairs on surface vessel units, doing major repairs on Tariq-class submarines, designing and constructing modern destroyers, designing and building missile cruisers, doing major units on aircrafts including airplanes and helicopters, and designing and constructing Ghadir-class submarines. On April 18, 1988, on the Iran Army Day, the courageous naval forces of Sahand and Sabalan destroyers and Joshan frigate confronted aggressive, trespassing U.S. forces in an unequal combat. In that combat, the Sahand destroyer and Joshan frigate sank, and the American helicopter was shot down and its 2 pilots killed. After that event, Iranian engineers added the success of completing minor repairs on Tariq submarines to the list of the Iranian Navy's achievements. The Tariq submarine has been active for 13 years, during which, due to the high percentage of salinity of the Persian Gulf and the Oman Sea waters, it had noticeable corrosions in its frame, the hardware of its tower, and its missile launching systems, so it needed minor repairs. In spite of the sanctions, Iranian engineers have managed to outline all its sketches, which helped a lot in repairing and altering the submarine. The difficulty and complexity of the repairs, workspace limitations, and most importantly, being the first Iranian administrative experience in doing such repairs inside Iran and without the presence of any foreign counselors, make this experience one of the greatest experiences of Iran in this field of technology. The difficulty and complexity of this task was to the extent that more than 200 qualified experts were needed to construct this super heavy submarine. And at the time, the remarkable point is not what these experts did, but how they did it. After gaining these experiences in order to gain independence, and on the order of the leader of Iran's Islamic Revolution, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, the committed Iranian designers, engineers, and experts put the construction of the Jamaran destroyer on their agenda. After 10 years, the hard work of hundreds of professional forces paid off, and the Jamaran destroyer, one of the world's most advanced destroyers and superior to any of the destroyers in its class, was launched in the Persian Gulf waters. The Jamaran destroyer has advanced facilities such as radar signal processing systems, an airborne, surface, and subsurface differentiation radar, electronic warfare capabilities, and electronic counter-counter missiles, ECCM, fire control system equipped with various types of autocannons, launchers and different sorts of surface-to-surface and surface-to-air missile systems with medium and long ranges. It is also equipped with newer long-range anti-ship cruise missile system, torpedo launcher systems, advanced compressed air, pneumatics, and firefighting systems, new generations of thrust and aid-to-navigation systems, anti-nuclear, chemical, and microbiological attack systems, and most importantly, it can also run a helicopter in-fight refueling operation. Presently, the Jamaran destroyer of the Islamic Republic of Iran has joined the Iranian Navy fleet and has reinforced their capability of effective presence in the deep strategic international waters of the Islamic Republic of Iran. This destroyer will keep the memory of the heroic acts of the courageous naval forces alive, specifically the highly revered martyrs of Sahand and Sabalan destroyers and the rest of Operation Morvarid heroes. In order to preserve the authority of the Islamic Republic of Iran, secure its water borders, keep its maritime routes open, and protect its merchant vessels and the rest of the vessels that sail on the waters of the Persian Gulf and the international waters of the Islamic Republic of Iran, the Iranian Navy powerfully tries to preserve the leadership and safety of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Securing the seas is not only fighting the enemies, pirates lie in wait for the merchant vessels carrying valuable cargoes such as oil. Since the reign of Nader Shah, the Iranian Navy has had a critical role in establishing peace and providing the security for merchant and tourist vessels and securing water borders in the territory. This honor is not merely a statement, but it is rooted in a history of management, leadership, and self-sacrifice of the Navy and its courageous men. In recent years, the Iranian Navy, like that of other countries, has had a powerful presence in international waters, up to the Suez Canal with Jamaran destroyer, and has carried out important operations in the Indian Ocean and even further for the purpose of providing security. This destroyer is currently in the Gulf of Aden to combat the pirates and provide security for the Iranian sailors of the merchant vessels and oil tankers. The release of a Chinese merchant vessel on the 6th of April 2012 is one of the most important recent operations of the Islamic Republic of Iran's naval forces. After being informed about the merchant vessel's hijacking in the Josk Naval Base zone, the courageous Iran Navy immediately showed up in the area and, using individual and collective techniques, saved the Chinese merchant vessel with the minimum possible damage and arrested the pirates, and then took their ship to the coastlines of Iran and achieved yet another honor. After some investigations, it was known that the pirates were from Somalia. Because of the chaos and lack of morality in that country, we annually witness such cases in the Sea of Oman, the Persian Gulf, and the Gulf of Aden. The courageous Islamic Republic of Iran Navy has bravely and devotedly supported and secured Iranian water borders and many of the vessels which intended to pass through the territories under the control of the Iranian Navy.
ما با این عملیاتی که اخیراً انجام دادیم در زیر مدار 10 درجه که خارج از منطقه مسئولیت نیروی دریایی هم بود، ثابت کردیم که این توانمندی رو داریم که هر جای منافع ما در خطر باشد می توانیم وارد بشیم و از منافعمون دفاع کنیم.
They are preserving the interests of our country. This powerful presence shows the capabilities of Iran and its supremacy in the territory as a country that does not need any kind of help or support from foreign countries.
ما به راحتی میتونیم با هماهنگی و همکاری همدیگه امنیت منطقه رو برقرار کنیم، منافع مشترک داریم و کسی که منافع مشترک و واقعی و منافع مشروع دارد میتواند دست به دست هم بده. طی همکاری هایی که 2 یا چند کشور میتونیم ما با همدیگه داشته باشیم، به راحتی میتونیم کار انجام بدیم و به همین دلیل هم میگیم که دیگه نیاز به حضور دیگران نیست. خودمون به راحتی میتونیم کار انجام بدیم.
This grace of God is the result of the generous support of the leader of the Islamic Revolution and the commander-in-chief of all the forces, and the hard work of the courageous naval forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
امروز همه چیز عوض شده است. ساحل ممتد و طولانی متعلق به ایران عزیز امروز در اختیار دولتی مستقل و ملتی سرافراز است.